Hello to everyone, all the participants and the speaker and all the panelists here. I am Apurva and I am the campaign coordinator with FIAPO. Welcome to today's webinar session. So this session is conducted in a series of webinars that we are calling Learn from the Leaders. This is the ninth webinar in our series, and today's topic is illegal dog breeders and pet shops. What we aim to attend during this session is impart certain knowledge legally and practically that you may be able to use while dealing with illegal dog breeders and pet shops. So our speaker today is Supriya Bose. And due to some technical difficulties, you guys won't be able to see Supriya, but she would be perfectly audible to you. Uh, Before we start the webinar, a little bit about FIAPO. FIAPO, as you all know, stands for Federation of Indian Animal Protection Organizations, and with a dream to establish respect and recognition for all the animals across the country. We have a mission of building an animal rights movement through connecting individuals such as all the participants and member organizations and supporting organizations using three kinds of tools. One is advocacy, second is networking, and third is capacity building. Webinars such as these come under the capacity building umbrella that FIAPO works through. And with that being said, I would like to ask Supriya to start with her introduction, and I will share the screen for today's content. Sanjay? Sanjay ji, Deepika, can you
Yes,
hear me?
ma'am, we can.
Yeah.
Want to wish you a very, very good evening. I'm extremely sorry that you cannot put a face to my name. I would have loved it that I could have also been able to see you all, but unfortunately, there are some technical hitches that are beyond our control. And in any case, I will try to give you as much information as possible, which is related to illegal dog breeders and pet shops, the laws that govern the correct management and running of these establishments, and if that is not the case, then how we can implement the laws. I will also, I think at the end of this PPT, we have a question answer session, and I'll be glad to answer any questions coming from all of you, and I'll do my level best to answer them as best as I can. Someone has said that I'm on mute. No, I think it is on my.
You're not on mute. You're audible to me.
So let's start with the PPT. The whole idea of this is what is the, I think I would go one step back and ask what is the reason that FIAPO has thought it prudent to have a discussion on illegal dog breeders and pet shops, etc. The reason is any one of you and all of you, I think, who care enough to be here and spend this time with us this evening. I'm sure all of you have seen all over in different parts of this country the number of animals which are abandoned. I'm not talking of the normal streeties or the indies or the mixed breed dogs that we see on our streets, but there are countless thoroughbred animals which find themselves tied up at bus stops, tied up outside veterinary hospitals and clinics, or simply just abandoned on garbage dumps to fend for themselves. The reason this is happening is that people take on animals without educating themselves about what a pet needs, and or the animal is taken on when it is a small pup or a kitten and looks very cute, and the minute the animal grows up, and as we all have certain requirements to make our life fulfilling, and when the animal exhibits these requirements, or it is required that we give those privileges to an animal, responsibilities rather, we find it is too much to do. So the easiest thing to do is to abandon that animal. We also know that our veterinary hospitals, animal shelters, clinics, etc., are totally overburdened, and we always are strapped for funds. So, unfortunately, these dogs and animals and cats, etc., who were once upon a time a part of people's families, find themselves in a situation where they are not able to fend for themselves. And unfortunately, these poor things are taken to these already overburdened places, And then we hope that we can find homes for them. So it is my endeavor today to try to tell you a little bit about what the dog breeders business is all about, how pet shops come to be what they are, and also to give you an insight so that you may educate yourself in such a way that you can impart this education and insight to people who are concerned about animals and people who feel they want to do something but don't know what to do. So if we can get started.
Yeah.
Apurva, please.
Yes.
Thank you. This is the question: who are termed as illegal breeders and what is meant by when we talk of illegal pet shops? There are two rules that have been come into effect in 2017 and 2018. That is the dog breeding and marketing rules and the pet shop rules of 2018 and the earlier one of 2017. I will not bore you all by going through all these rules because these can be easily got on websites, and I'm sure Apurva will share them with you also. So you will have them ready on hand to study them, read through them, etc. Basically, the main crux of these rules is that anyone who is a dog breeder and anyone who has a pet shop, they must have a registration certificate or RC from the state animal welfare boards of their respective states. Anyone who is engaging in commercial activity of either not only dogs, any animals, breeding or selling, having a pet shop or any kind of breeding activity, whether it's backyard breeding, whether it is having breeding going on in their home, or they have establishments which are totally dedicated to the breeding of animals, all such people require the registration certificate, or else they can be legally and lawfully termed as being illegal breeders and illegal pet shop owners. Next. The question here is that what is the reason that we should concern ourselves about these laws? And I feel since all of us are somewhere or the other connected to animals, we feel for animals, we feel that we need to speak up for their rights. The question is, we can only speak up for animal rights and try to help animals if we ourselves understand what is going on behind the scenes. So let's understand that there is a great amount of cruelty involved in breeding and the pet shop industry. All this, these large number of animals which are produced through breeding and which end up in pet shops, or I'm sorry to say many times in the clinics of veterinarians themselves. All these animals find themselves there because, as you all know, there is a great demand, hence there will always be a supply. But before we can do anything about this, we need to understand how we can break this chain, thereby reducing the demand through education and awareness. Thereby, if the demand is reduced, the supply will also hopefully reduce. Next slide, please. Now, just to get you a little familiarized with what is the cruelty involved. For instance, when people go to stand in a pet shop, most people don't find any cruelty involved. They look at the cages are filled with kittens and puppies and birds and all this kind of thing. Sometimes the cages are dirty, sometimes they are not, but by and large, people are not sensitized to what animals are going through. Now we have to understand what exactly makes up this industry. First and foremost, these animals are transported from one place to another in worst conditions, because try to understand, the main idea of any business is profit. If the main idea of any business is profit, then I will try to reduce my overheads as much as possible, spend as little as I possibly can, and have the largest margin of profit. It doesn't matter if in the bargain I am harming, hurting, killing, or causing suffering to any other life. So animals are transported and kept in very bad conditions before sale. Animals are kept in pet shops and by breeders, and they are not given timely veterinary care. They do not have proper housing. They are not exercised. They do not have enough space. And most often, what their actual nutritional needs are, these are never met. When we go to a pet shop, the owner of the pet shop or the people working there are very eager to sell us the animal, because the more animals they sell, the more is their margin of profit. It is very well known among many of us, and many people have experienced this. Many people have come to people like us who work for veterinary hospitals or NGOs saying they bought a puppy or a kitten or an animal, and within the first 2 or 3 days, the animal has died. This is because these animals are exposed to a huge number of infectious diseases. And unfortunately, we'll come to that in a later slide, but just giving you a slight inclination now, one of the main reasons for this is because they are removed from their mothers very, very early. So if the mothers are already vaccinated and having a certain amount of antibody titer, because they are unable to feed their offspring for the requisite number of time, the pups and the kittens and the other young animals are devoid of this immunity. Then we also have harmful, and I think they are banned now, tail docking, ear cropping, declawing, etc. Also, pet shops, the frontage of the pet shop will maybe show you just selling puppies, kittens, and small birds and all this kind of thing. But these pet shops also double up as being channels for illegal sale and trade in wild animals, which are protected by our Wildlife Protection Act of 1972. And I think now all of you must be hearing in the news this huge demand for pangolins. Okay, this I think you all are seeing, and this is because there is always a demand, and these demands are always being met at the cost of animals dying tragic deaths, which if we are educated and if we can impart this education to others, I think we could be able to save quite a few lives. Okay, the next few slides are just a few pictures of the pet shops, I think. Yeah, these are parakeets, which are taken away from the, go back here. These parakeets, if you see, they are still having the first down that they get when they start getting their permanent feathers. They are not totally having their permanent plumage yet. These are taken away from their mothers and their nests. So the natural feeding that would have been done by the mother, it's not possible for humans to replicate that because these are wild animals. So other kinds of, substitute feeding is done. And I think, if I mistake not, more than 40 to 50% of such animals perish in transit, if not more. This is just, I mean, we can only surmise because certain NGOs have done certain studies, but we never understand the depth of the death that is involved in such kind of translocation, where animals are picked up in large numbers and brought for sale. Next. The next slide is an African grey. Now these unfortunately are foreign exotic species, and since they don't come under the purview of our Wildlife Protection Act, all we can take measures to help is if there is direct cruelty involved.
Yeah, although just like clarifying here, like although there are certain birds that we see in pet shops which do not have protection under our Wildlife Protection Act. If
Yes.
we see a direct cruelty, let's say a certain injury or like denial of food and water being done to these animals, so although they are not wildlife, they can still be protected under the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act 1960, right?
Right, you are absolutely right. We can take cognizance of this under the PCA Act 1960. We can also use IPC 428, 429. There are lots of sections that can be used. But having said that, I think most of you are aware that in our present act, the way they stand now, we are able to put charges, fine of 10 and 20 rupees, maximum going to 50 rupees. Right. So the person who is perpetrating these cruelties doesn't mind paying 50 rupees and getting away with it. And I don't know how many of you are aware, there is an organization called SAS, which is called Society for Animal Safety. And this organization, of which I'm also a consultant and a part of, we are raising a campaign called Inka Bhi Hak Hai. And basically what we are trying to do is we are trying to have these archaic old laws changed and make punishment so severe so that people will be deterred from carrying out such kind of actions on animals, be they pets, be they stray, be they anything. Because right now a person can murder an animal, kill an animal, as is the case we see so often, run over an animal, and the maximum fine is 50 rupees. And at the most, he will be put in the police station for one day and the next day he's out. Right? So we also need to be involved in trying to uh, make these laws prevalent and up to date in our society 2021, not 1960.
Yeah, because the punishment that is given was the original punishment when the act came out in 1960 and
That is 60
hasn't been
years
updated
ago. And
now.
yeah, now maybe 60 years ago, 50 rupees was a large sum of money. But in today's day, a person can pay 50 rupees every day, 10 times a day. It's not a big deal. So we need to get that sorted out. And as far as I know, SAS India is working on this, and their campaign is called Inka Bhi Hak Hai. If any one of you are interested, you can read more about that also. Can we have the next slide, please? Yeah. Now, again here, these are budgerigars and cockatiels. These also are not indigenous Indian birds. These originate in Papua New Guinea and other areas. But now what is happening is that these birds are being bred in captivity and sold because they are quite easy to breed. And as you can see this, if you see this picture clearly, you will find there's a lot of overcrowding. There is not enough place given for the animals to sit as in roost. So they are clinging to the cages. There's a lot of fecal matter all around and feathers all around the cage. The water doesn't look too good. And the animals are just actually clinging on to these cages because there is actually nowhere for them to sit because they haven't given enough perches and roosts for them to sit on. This is a barn owl. This is an indigenous Indian animal, bird. And as you see, it has been caught. It is being transported in a small kind of a zip-up carry bag and taken away from its natural environment and obviously to be sold. And one thing I also want you to know that there are a lot of, myths and like what we call old wives' tales and superstitions concerning lot of animals. Many people sometimes say they use them for black magic. Many people use them for some kind of cure. Some people says if you drink the blood of a pigeon, then this something happens to you. And if you do something else, then something else happens. This is all nonsense, and we should really in this day and age, I feel I mean, it's a kind of a plea with folded hands that I reach out to all of you to please, take away all these misconceptions. And this is very common in our villages and in our rural areas. People do all these things with all kinds of animals. And unfortunately, our flora and fauna is suffering greatly due to all this.
So from my understanding, owl and the superstitions go so bad, and they during happen mostly during Diwali time, because owl is supposed to be a vahan of the goddess Lakshmi, and it's considered that if you sacrifice an owl near Diwali time, it brings you a lot of prosperity and things like that. So owl smuggling is like heavy during Diwali season.
This is very sad because I don't think the goddess Lakshmi would want
Of
that
course,
her
they
Vahan should be slaughtered in her name. And I don't think she would be giving any prosperity to anyone who does it, because obviously if the owl is considered to be her Vahan, then he or she, the owl, should also get that amount of respect and
definitely.
adoration that we put upon goddess Lakshmi.
Also, Supriya, just to clarify, like all wild animals have, like none of the wild animals can be portrayed or displayed in the pet shops, because catching the wild animal from the natural habitat itself is a crime, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So the protection that this owl would get would be under three different kind of rules or law pieces of law. So one would be the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act, and then these rules, because and then Wildlife Protection Act as well, right?
Protection Act is a very, very strong act. So according to me, if there are indigenous wild species seen in public areas for sale, I think you just need to go with the Wildlife Protection Act, because that is a far stronger and more stringent act than PCA or IPC, what in the terms of punishment.
Definitely.
Yeah. There is a question coming from a lady, I think Saroj Soparkar, and either I can answer that now or later.
I think we'll keep it for like question and answer round that which is the last 20 minutes of the session. I've
Can
noted
we
down
go
the
to the,
question. Yeah.
yeah, can we go to the next slide? Now that we've understood that why is the cruelty there? The cruelty is there, actually, if I were to put it in one simple sentence, because of demand and supply. If there is no demand, there will be no supply. But now there is a demand, okay? There's a demand for various reasons. We'll come to that later on. So now the question is, if we know why there's a demand, the question is, how can we care for these animals? How can we ensure that this demand is reduced? So what do we do? First and foremost, all of you should understand the dark side of this industry. It is not a pretty industry. It's not a happy industry. It is not an industry which gives rights to the animals. It is not an industry that cares for animals. It is an industry that is only run to make money. The fact that animals which are feeling, caring, sentient beings are being used to make money, that is not at all important to the people involved in this industry. For them, they are a means of earning money without going to work, because it's very easy. If I have 3 female dogs, bitches, a good breed, all I have to do is get them regularly mated. Twice a year, I have at least on an average 12 to 15 or 12 to 16 puppies, depending on the size of the breed. And if I sell every puppy for even 5, 7, 10,000, depending again on the breed, I make a lot of money and I don't need to bother about going to work. So we have to first understand how this industry works. Second, we have to educate ourselves not only about how the industry works, but what can we do to spread awareness and information to others. We have to understand what is the procedure and implementation for these laws, which have been made in 2017 and 18. We need to take help from these laws. Once we are educated, then we can become an educator and spread awareness. And we should also, instead of asking people or going along with people or helping people to buy animals, we should try to stress upon people to adopt animals. And there are countless thoroughbred animals which are in very good condition, which are lying in shelters all over the country. These animals can be adopted. So it is better, instead of spending, people spend astronomical sums of money, 30, 40, 50, 60 grand on getting pups and kittens. Instead of that, why don't we adopt a young dog, an old dog, any dog? If a person doesn't want a mixed breed, then there are even large number of thoroughbreds available. Those can be adopted and given homes, and animals don't need to be bought. So how do you start caring, understanding the industry? Like I said earlier, first and foremost, there's a steady supply of various pets because there's an ever increasing demand for them. This whole idea of demand and supply applies to everything. It applies to animals, it applies to drugs, it applies to arms, it applies to anything illegal. Everything goes by this simple understanding of demand and supply. Many of you will remember when this whole campaign started off to stop killing of elephants for ivory. The whole campaign was about, when the demand stops, the selling will too, the killing will too. Everything is demand based. So if we can reduce the demand, obviously the supply will itself get reduced because there'll be no demand for it. So it's like saying that everywhere when we go in, suppose, a rural area, everywhere we see stones, rocks, etc. No one is standing on the highway selling this because there is no demand for it. So very dark, cruel, painful, pathetic side of this industry. Maybe we will be able to impress upon them that, you know what, we don't want to be a part of this dirty business. We don't want to have a stake in this. So through education, people will stop demanding these animals. And when the demand goes down, the supply will too. Now, why is there a demand for animals? What are the main reasons that people want a pet at home? Companionship. Children want animals as pets because they think that it's a plaything, which it is not. Especially during summer vacations, all the children get bored And now because of lockdown, everybody has been at home and everybody has tried to take on pets. Now, I don't understand what is going to happen to these pets. COVID is not going to last forever. Even if we say it is for 2 years or 3 years, but the pet is going to live an average of 10 to 12 years. What is going to happen when everybody goes back to their normal life? So then what happens? So a commitment has to be thought about with that animal before. So companionship is one. People want dogs to guard their properties and homes. We have a lot of advertisements and pictures, movies, advertisement films showing certain particular breeds, and these people get influenced by this breed because they see it hanging out with some actor or with some actress or doing some kind of tricks. So people feel that, oh, every single one of these animals is going to do this for me, so they go in for those specific dog breeds. We'll talk about this in the next couple of slides. Then we either see movies and we see these very good breeds and we say, oh, how nice, this looks beautiful, we also want the same breed. So that animal is brought, but the animal may not be suitable to the Indian environment, climate, etc. And many times also wildlife is kept as pets because wild animals they consider to be exotic. So it is again kept as pets because, of course, people want someone to see what they have so that it can become a topic of conversation. So what are the things that we see about this? Education, awareness, attack the demand, reduce the supply. That is what we need to do, all of us. We need to educate ourselves. We need to create awareness so that demand is attacked and supply is reduced. What is wrong with pet shops? There's overcrowding. Wild animals are also trafficked through this. These poor animals have been snatched from the wild habitat. There is not enough, because of overcrowding, there is not enough space given. The food that is given is not proper. And when you go to buy an animal from these pet shops, most likely the animal is not going to be of a good caliber, either health-wise or breed-specific. What is wrong with commercial pet breeding? Commercial pet breeding is that responsible breeders, according to me, there are very few and far between. I have not yet come across a single responsible pet breeder in my time of animal welfare. Anyway, if they do exist, I don't think they do, but all the same, I will give that margin. The mothers are treated like factories, like I told you. Every 6 months, they are impregnated, sometimes forcibly impregnated to get pregnant, and they keep on delivering pups, litters, one after the other, twice in a year. If a female dog is put through this kind of treatment, the dog doesn't last is not able to continue this kind of reproduction for more than 4 to 5 years of her life. After that time, these animals are abandoned. They are thrown out. They are actually discarded on the street, on the road, put somewhere far away, or just left to die. The litters, the babies that are born, these are taken away from the mothers very early. The reason being, again, profit. If I were to keep the litter of 5 or 7 or 8 pups with the mother and allow her to feed them for, say, 2.5 months, till the time they are completely weaned off her milk and start eating solid food, I will have to spend a lot of money to look after the mother in such a way that she is able to produce that kind of milk. Now, if I'm going to do all that, then my profit margin is reducing. So I don't want to do all that. So before the pups and kittens or young animals are properly weaned, they are taken away from the mother. The mother is given hormones to stop the milk supply, which is also extremely, extremely difficult for the mother to bear. Another thing is that because the mother's milk is not being given, the immunity is not the immunity titer for various diseases is not made up in the animals, the young one's blood. So these animals are then open to a lot of diseases and infectious diseases, and that is why many of them who are taken away from their mothers well before the time that they should, they normally die, falling prey to either gastroenteritis, parvo, or other infectious diseases. The third important thing of why the mother is required, like all young people require their mother, humans require, all animals require their mothers, is because socializing, disciplining, all the different finer points which are required for a small animal to learn in their babyhood, these are only taught by the mother. It is not possible for us to take the place of an animal mother in an animal baby's life. This we have to understand. The baby has to be left with the mother for the full duration of time that it is required. The next point is the myth of buying and rescuing animals from pet shops. Most of the time, whenever I have spoken to people, they have turned around and told me that, oh, I felt very sorry for this pet. It was looking so sad. I wanted to save it. Yes, your place, your feeling of saving and buying that animal comes from a place of caring. It comes from a place where you really do want to help. But unfortunately, this help that you give, you are becoming part of this industry. By buying that animal, you are doing exactly what the pet shop owner wants you to do. You are buying the animal, he is getting his money, and you are taking that pet, which if it is sick, it's going to die, or you are going to spend huge sums of money on a private vet to get it treated. And it may also happen that if the animal survives, it will have some far-reaching other problems, which it will be a lifelong disadvantage to that animal. So I know when you see a pet shop and you see the animals there, it is a pitiful sight. It is a very, very, very heart-wrenching thing to see the small babies alone crying out. Sometimes they are lying in their own fecal matter. They are dirty. They are not kept clean. There is no bedding provided for them. And we feel that if we buy this animal, at least we will save that life. But please remember, when you buy one animal, there'll be another one coming to replace it immediately. And this story will continue. So we should understand that we should not under any condition, buy animals from pet shops. Please understand and remember, when the demand stops, the selling will too. We have to understand this, no matter how difficult it is. We have to, as people working for and with animals, we have to understand this, and we have to teach this to others.
Like, if I see a sick puppy in a pet shop, it's absolutely a no to rescue, or like to call it a rescue if I'm buying from the pet shop, right?
Well, I don't say it will be a no. Yes, if you talk about that particular puppy that you are buying, yes, in the fact that you are buying that puppy who is sick, who is ailing, you are rescuing it. Whether or not you'll be able to save his life, it's a different matter. But the fact of the matter is that you have purchased the item, that animal, which in the eyes of the pet shop owner is an item. It is a thing. You have purchased that and you have paid him the required money. So his job is done. What happens after you leave the shop with the animal, he's not concerned with. So what we are doing is that when we do buy, yes, you may rescue that one animal, but that doesn't mean that you are stopping this industry. In fact, I would say that if the animal is sick, maybe we should complain about that pet shop. We should try to take some legal recourse as to why is he keeping an. You're not allowed to actually exhibit animals which are sick and which are maimed and which have got problems. So it is in his best interest that if he's a pet shop and we presume he's a licensed pet shop, then he should not show animals which are in a bad condition. So I think we could take action on that part and not the question of actually buying it. Exotic animals. There's a spelling mistake. Sorry, that's my mistake. It should have been snakes in the first line. Not a problem. Anyway, there are a lot of exotic animals like lions, tigers, wolves, bears, reptiles, iguanas, snakes, and non-human primates. All of these belong in their natural habitat in the wild, and many times all over the world, especially in the West, in US, this is a huge business. People keep these as pets. They keep them in cages, they keep them in captivity, and there are many cases where these animals have either attacked the owners because they are wild animals, or the owners have not been able to care for them, so they are either shot or put to sleep for no fault of their own. The nature of these animals are primarily wild. They require their natural habitat, and as such, they do not adjust well to captive environment. I am specifically stressing this for the reptiles. As you know, the cold-blooded reptiles, they require a certain amount of sunlight. They require, their entire body clocks work differently, and human beings who keep them as pets keep them in artificial light, They are not allowed to go on trees. They give them this mock kind of trees and all this. It's a life of loneliness. It is a life of isolation. They are not allowed to live with their own kind. And most animals in the wild, there is certain kind of a family unit. There are packs, there are groups, there are herds. These animals are social beings and they require to have that social interaction. If I were to get a lion or a tiger or a snake, I cannot be a companion in the eyes of that animal the way that animal requires companionship. I may think that animal is my companion, but it doesn't work. Just it's not a one-way street, right? I mean, if we say we care for animals, then we have to respect their basic intrinsic nature. And
A
most
point.
importantly, when we do all this, we are depriving them of their first birthright, which is freedom. We all know natural habitats are shrinking. There is increasing man-animal conflict all over the world because humans are going further and further and further into wild areas. Where will the animals go? So many species are dying out because either their food sources have gone, their land has gone, they do not have the required area and food to sustain them, and they are dying. They are no longer reproducing. So whatever there is in the wild, let us all get together and try to save these species.
Also, Supriya, so in Indian houses, I have seen Alexandrian parakeets or like the rose ring parakeets being kept as the pets. Now,
They are
even when
illegal.
like they are illegal, or also like even when like someone wants to release them, they cannot be just released, right? Because if they have been habituated in a domestic household, in a human household, releasing this kind of a parrot doesn't guarantee his or her life, because they can't really survive in the wild after being caged for years from their birth, right? Like,
Yes,
so
yes,
that's another.
yes, absolutely correct. Yes. Now there is this point that you have raised, that basically these animals that you have spoken about are coming under the Wildlife Protection Act. And as such, rhesus monkeys, parakeets, our Indian indigenous and breeds of birds are not allowed to be kept as pets, right? But the problem is, yes, if they have been kept in a cage, do not belong to a flock. They are all alone, they are isolated. If you leave them free, how are they going to forage for food? How are they going to stay alive? The only best thing to do is then try to rehabilitate that animal in a place where there is a larger number of the same species, introduce them back into as close as a natural setting as possible, making sure that the animal that is being introduced back into a flock does not carry any other diseases. Otherwise, the flock that you are introducing this animal to, or the herd or the group, is then will be jeopardized if there is any other disease that is being carried by this animal. So proper reintroduction protocol has to be followed, wherein the animal may be kept in quarantine and then a gradual release or slow socialization is done.
Because I know certain people whose parents had gotten these parrots as a companion animal, and the people from this generation, they realize that like caging a bird, like, although, because in movie portrayal we have like tota bolta hai and tota gata hai, so I think it comes from that generation. And when someone from the next generation, or someone who realizes that this bird doesn't belong here, that becomes a little problem in, especially in areas where wildlife rehabilitation centers aren't easily accessible. So what do you suggest, like, for such birds, like, who have been in a family for, like, let's say
See,
10, 12
I'm trying to
years?
tell you, if people, see, another thing also I have seen that these birds which are with a family for a long time, there is a bond also which is established
Yeah.
between the animal and the person. When you take this animal away from the people he knows and the environment he or she knows, that animal also suffers because it doesn't know anyone else or anything else. So then in that case, either I think there is a way in which maybe a license can be got or not. I'm not sure of that, but because the laws have also changed a lot. And I guess the only thing then is to try to give it as much of freedom, by if it's in a cage, to give it as big a cage as possible, to try to give it as natural food as possible. I think you can then just make the best of the worst case scenario, if there is no other option. And also, if there are options where these people can, nowadays everything is online, information is available, lot of information is available. So if they can find out if there is some way in which there is, say, an aviary where people have got, rehabilitated birds. So maybe the space is larger, flying area is more, the whole outlook for that bird could be a little bit more cheerful, then maybe it could be reintroduced there. But on the basis that that animal will not suffer anymore. Because primarily it is the animals peace that we are looking for, right? The animals happiness, as it were.
Yes. Okay.
And pets that are used as status symbols. This is a very, very common thing nowadays. People want to show off animals as part of what they own. Like they may show off their cars or their watches or their motorbikes or their diamonds or the houses they live. Animals also now have become, for a long time, they serve as status symbols. And the more rare or the more expensive or the more so-called exotic an animal is, the prouder these people become of getting these particular animals. I would just say that all of us should try to spread the message that we educate ourselves very, very well before we embark upon adding an animal to our family. We have to understand what animal are we looking at? Why do we want to get an animal? That's a completely different topic actually altogether. So I will not digress too much. But yes, what is the reason that we want an animal? What are we looking for to get? Why do we want a particular breed? Why not another breed? We need to understand this. It's like I keep telling people, I try to educate them. When we go out to buy a mobile, we will sit and we will do a very big analysis. Samsung versus Oppo versus iPhone versus so and so, so much GB, so much RAM, so much this. We do a whole thesis about this. Then how much is the battery life and how much we can game on it, and all this we do. Why don't we apply the same rule when we go to pick up a living being? The phone is an inanimate object. It has got no life. But a living animal has got life. It has feelings. It feels pain. It is able to feel love. It is able to give love. So don't we need to educate ourselves about what kind of animals are we getting? Will we be able to dedicate the next 10 to 12 years of our life, if it's a dog, to be with that animal till its natural death? Will we be able to provide everything that the animal needs to live a happy life? If all these are a tick mark, yes, are all the members in the family also ready for the animal? Are they also going to be part and parcel of the family of that animal? Is the animal going to be kept in the home like one of us, like my son or my daughter or my child or my husband? Or is that animal going to be kept tied up at the main gate? Whether it is raining, whether it is hot, whether it is cold. We have so many complaints of huskies being tied out in Pune and Delhi. Temperatures in summer go to 40, 45 degrees centigrade. Animals are kept out, they die of heat stroke. Or equally
Saint
in the cold.
right?
Saint Bernards, huskies, all these animals, they don't belong here. Firstly, these dogs don't belong here. If you have short-haired breeds but large breeds, are we able to give them that kind of exercise? They are just kept tied up, and our kind of a cook or the bearer or driver just takes them and stands at the corner with the mobile. He's either chewing tobacco or smoking a cigarette, and the dog is just standing over there. No exercise. No. See, animals are social beings. Most animals are social beings. They need interaction. They interact with each of their own kind. They require grooming. They either groom themselves or they groom each other. They require to play. They require to be socialized. They require to get the right kind of food. They require the right kind of exercise. And when we domesticate animals, then they require veterinary care, they require vaccinations, deworming, all these things. If we are unable to deliver, then it is better that instead of buying an expensive dog, I think we should buy an expensive phone or maybe a nice motorbike or something like this, which can stand there in the driveway and everybody can see it and we can be happy about that. I don't think we should subject an animal to our ego.
So to
I
summarize
don't think it
this
is.
slide, when we want like animals, it should come from a place that we want animal companionship, and we are ready to give the same kind of companionship that the animal would require. And our intention shouldn't be something as shallow as like, let this animal be a status symbol or something to add to my personality or family, right?
Also, I'll go one step further. If you really genuinely want an animal, if you really genuinely want the company of an animal, but you are unable to fulfill all these criteria, then you can 2 to 3 times a week, you can go and help a shelter.
Volunteer.
You can volunteer at a shelter. You can take animals for walks. You can help with their bathing, grooming, feeding. And in that way, you will not only get so much of love and so much of happiness you will find coming into your life, because when these animals get to know you and they see you, there will be such joy and they'll be jumping and so happy to see you. Take them for a walk. That way you can be with them. You are able to fulfill the requirement that you have of being in animal company, and at the same time you are mature and sensible enough to understand that you cannot keep a dog or a cat with you, but you are able to definitely impart love and affection to them. Here, this is a very famous, when the Vodafone ad came, everyone went and got pugs. This everyone wanted to get these dogs because of this ad. And one thing I want to just share with you, if you see the face of the pug, the muzzle is completely, it has been shortened so badly, the muzzle of these animals, and such kind of faces are got through breeding. Basically, through breeding is what we get certain traits or certain physical attributes that we want to highlight. In the case of pugs, because there are 2 3 problems with these dogs. One is because of their very very short muzzle, they have a lot of problem with breathing. They tend to have also very badly protruding eyeballs, and because the skin happens to keep on folding as the dog becomes older and keeps folding, the skin keeps on going into rolls, they suffer from a lot of fungal infection in the folds of their skin. All these things people don't know before they go out for this breed. And once they are faced with these problems, then these dogs are also abandoned. Golden retrievers and Labradors, Pomeranians, all these animals have been shown for various advertisements, dog food, pet food, or certain roaming around with certain actors and actresses. So we also feel that, if we do the same thing, we may also resemble some such person. But the animal is brought for a short time, and when the novelty wears out, the animal is homeless.
Those were like few references of the movies which popularized these certain breeds. Now,
There is a very strong movement all over the world, not only in India. Adopt, don't shop. The reason for this is, I mentioned this earlier, that there are ever increasing uh, animals which are being abandoned, thoroughbred animals which are being abandoned for various reasons. The reasons are innumerable. And for people who work with animals, none of these reasons is a valid reason, because we know that there are people that, for people who care, then they will go to any length to keep their pet. And for people for whom the animal is not really important, there are 100 reasons to abandon the pets. So these animals normally end up in shelters, veterinary hospitals, fosters all over the country. So it's a humble request to everyone who wants a pet, that if you are sure that you have gone through the checklist and you are absolutely certain that you will be able to look after the pet, and you are absolutely sure that, yes, I want a pet. Once you have done the study and you have done the entire test with yourself as to all the requirements, and everything is yes, and you've made up your mind, then isn't it better to take on a pet which has been abandoned, which is craving for love, craving for a home, and give that animal a chance to live again instead of going and buying something from a pet shop about which you know nothing. Now we come back about going by the law. So this is what you can do where education is concerned, awareness is concerned, spreading awareness among people, talking, and basically what you are trying to do is you are trying to sensitize people about this industry and let them learn about this industry and thereby take educated decisions before getting a pet. But being an animal welfare worker, activist, a person who cares for animals, a person who is just a normal citizen, when you come across things which are illegal, either breeding in the areas of illegal breeding or pet shops, etc., and you want to do something, now you want to make use of the law to do this. How do you do this? So now let's just do a summary of this. First and foremost, please understand that for any breeder or pet shop owner or pet shop person who's running a pet shop, you have to have a registration certificate from the State Animal Welfare Board. This is mandatory. This is a given. This is the first rule. Now, when we talk of pets, what are we talking about? We are talking of dogs, cats, rabbits, guinea pigs, hamsters, white mice, rats, etc., captive birds. Okay. This definition does not include turtles, snakes, iguanas, monkeys, etc. These are commonly imported illegally into India and exported illegally out of India. The wild animal trade, I want you all to also know another fact. It is a really astounding fact. The trade in wild animals comes second only to the trade in arms. So can you just imagine how big is the trade in wild animals? The illegal trade in wild animals comes second only to the trade in arms. So you can imagine all over the world at this given point in time, at this given moment, how many animals, birds, snakes, reptiles are being literally snatched out, put into bags, gunny bags, bottles, tubes, and being sent all over the world just appease of people who feel they want these animals. And these animals are lost to nature forever. So how does a breeder or a pet shop owner get this mandatory registration certificate? They have to apply to the State Animal Welfare Board. A team from State Animal Welfare Board comes, inspects this infrastructure, either breeding premises or the pet shop, and sees what the standards are given under the rules pertaining to either breeding or selling. If the team then submits their report and the State Animal Welfare Board takes the decision. If all the criteria are found to be up to date and proper, then a registration certificate is issued for pet shop for 5 years and breeders for 2 years. The maintenance of these standards is mandatory, wherein you have to please make it clear what welfare activities you are having, what are you managing. All the compliances have to be up to date, receipts, selling, buying, monthly reports, veterinarian visits, food given, etc., cleaning, timings, all these things have to be clearly mandated and observed. If for some reason the State Animal Welfare Board finds that the criteria in either the breeder's premises or the pet shop is not up to the mark, then the registration certificate will not be issued. So now that you know both the sides, you know the way the industry runs, you know the cruelties involved, you know the laws that are there. Now you have two ways of dealing with it. When you encounter animal breeders and pet shops which are blatantly violating the law, what can you do? You can either go the legal way, you can go the practical way, or you can go both ways. You can be practically also and you can do legally also. So let's go through what we can do. Now, if you are going the legal way, these are the kind of scenarios you may come across. One, when you see a pet shop or a breeder, there is no registration certificate shown to you, or actually it should be displayed in the shop, but it's not there. On asking or requesting, you don't get a satisfactory answer, and you are given to believe that this particular person does not have the registration certificate. So what can you do about this? Here, you will please use Rule 3 of the Dog Breeding and Marketing Rules 2017. If it's a breeder, if it's a pet shop, you will go to Rule 3 of the Pet Shop Rules 2018. All these rules will be shared with you from the FIAPO office, so you don't have to worry about that. All the resources that you require will be provided to you. Am I right, Apurva?
Yes, yes. They will be getting an email and PDFs of all the resources, the rules and the PPT.
Okay. The next scenario you may come across is that the registration certificate is available with the breeder and or the pet shop owner, but you find the animals are not being cared for correctly. They may be either kept on very short leashes, they may be tied up or overcrowded in cages, there may not be any food, there may not be water, there may be something or the other happening. Now, under these conditions, you will file a written complaint and submit it to the nearest police station, quoting Section 11 of PCA 1960 and or Section 428, 428, 29 of IPC, depending on what the cruelty is. Here again, you will get these resources, so you don't have to worry about it. The third option you may face is that everything is wrong. There is no registration certificate and the animals are being treated cruelly, and the people there do not care a damn about the animal, and they are not bothered about what you are saying, and they are not bothered about the law, and they are just about doing whatever they want. In this unfortunate scenario, what you will do is you will then be able to use all the acts that are available to you. You can use Section 11 of PCA 1960. You can use 428, 429 IPC. You can use Dog Breeding and Marketing Rules 2017. You can use Pet Shop Rules 2018. Whatever is applicable to you, whatever you find, whatever is the cruelty, you can just go through these rules, and whichever rule you find applicable to that situation that you are a part of or which you are witness to, you can file this complaint. And why we are saying to file a complaint at the nearest police station and quote this is because, unfortunately, most of our police stations are not aware of these rules. They are not aware of PCA, IPC they are aware of, but they may not know that 428, 429 is pertaining to animals. Dog breeding rules, pet shop rules, these are not known to them. So when you go with a complaint, the first thing, if at all the inspector will talk to you, he'll say, but under under what section shall I book this person? What is his crime? Now, if you have got these informations ready on hand with you, you are going to make your life and the police inspector's life very easy. Because in our country, the police stations are a crazy place to go.
Definitely.
The people who are in the police stations, the inspectors and all, they themselves are harassed beyond words. They so many times are doing 16, 18-hour shifts. They don't go home. They are there the whole day, the whole night. And many times we have seen when we go and talk about animal cruelty, we are told that आप जानवर के बारे इधर आए बात करने के लिए, इधर आदमी का हत्या हो रहा है, रेप हो रहा है, मर्डर हो रहा है, तुम लोग जानवर के बारे किसके लिए इधर आए? Correct, true.
A lot of apathy.
So, sorry?
There is a lot of apathy towards animal suffering.
So you have to tell them, yes, sir, very good. That's all very well. But I'm just trying to tell you that under this act, this act, this act, this act, these are the laws. So I'm just saying that this person is not following the law. So I want to write a written complaint, and I'm giving you section so-and-so, section so-and-so, and section so-and-so. You don't have to worry yourself which section is it. Here is the section, read it and write it down, or I'm writing it and giving it. You take my complaint. So it is better when you are armed with the information. It is better than to put your case forward, because that person who you are dealing with may not be aware of these rules. So when you are clued up and when you are educated, that person also is getting educated by you. Now, there are many people who take on this kind of pet shops, breeders, single-handedly. It is my very earnest request to all of you. Please don't try to do this fight single-handedly, simply because breeders, pet shops, transporters, all these people are in this for the money. Nobody is doing this for seva. Please understand. If there is no profit involved, they are not going to do this business. And anyone who is being stopped from carrying out his business and earning his livelihood is not going to accept your nonsense. In his mind or her mind, that person who is doing all this, what you are talking is nonsense. So I will request you, please do not have a fight alone with any of these people. It is dangerous. Especially if you are a non-male activist, I request you to be very, very careful. There are countless cases all over India of women activists who are getting actually assaulted. When they are coming and going from work, they are getting assaulted. People are stopping them on the road. People are hitting them. People are making life miserable. This is not something for the sake of your own safety and the safety of your family. Yes, you want to take action against wrongdoing, but take that action in a sensible manner. So what can you do? Collaborate with a local NGO. There are some NGOs who have a law enforcement team. Use that law enforcement team. Go to an SPCA who has the authority to take action on this kind of people. Try to, when an organization takes up the matter, then the onus is removed from the single one person. So it is better for you to do this. Go back to the last slide. Yes, please. It is better to go with an organization front than do it on your own. What you can do alone is you can spread awareness. You can inform people what the dark side of commercial breeding is about. Promote the idea of adopt, don't shop. That's a fabulous thing you can do. Assist your local animal shelter with their adoptions. Help them to get people who want to adopt the animals. Make a list of, there are still people who say, no, I don't want to adopt a dog. I want to buy a dog. For these die-hard people who are totally, fanatical about maybe a particular breed or whatever it is, or the fact that they want to buy a pet, then make a list of registered breeders who have got the license. And if pet shops also have and have maintaining a certain high code of conduct, maybe then as a last resort, you can give this option so that the purchase is made through a proper source. Okay, so just a quick summary. Okay, action points. Understand the industry, understand why it's harmful, learn about the laws so that you can regulate this industry, educate yourself, give information in small digestible nuggets, either through WhatsApp, friend circle, promote, adopt, don't shop, help out your local shelters, encourage people to adopt, encourage people not to abandon their pets, make a list of breeders, pet shops, etc., and share this information with people. I think we have come to the end of this. Yes, thank you. Now I am ready to take on as many questions as I can, and I will do my level best to answer them as well as I possibly can.
So I will read out questions to you. Okay. For the first question we have is, why can't all sorts of breeding be made illegal? Because I believe there is no need of breeding besides saving a species that is on the verge of extinct. We can get rid of everything that's attached to animal cruelty and people to adopt rather than buy. What is your take on this? A very interesting question.
I am not at all in favor of breeding of any animal. Because yes, I agree with you that breeding is only required for saving a species. And I will also add here that normally all species that are coming to the brink of extinction and need to be saved is thanks to human beings, because we have either deprived them of their habitat or their natural life. And hence they have come to this situation where we need to breed and help them to come back from the brink of extinction, correct? We can get rid of everything that attached to animal cruelty. Now see, the question of whether or not breeding can be made illegal, this is a matter of, again, question. There are people who are going to fight that breeding is absolutely essential, and there are people who are going to say that breeding is not essential. I personally don't believe that breeding is required at all. That's my personal view, but that is not the view of people who are after getting a specific breed of animal.
Also, to add on to the answer, like to this question that this person has asked, why can't all sorts of breeding be made illegal? It's usually because laws are passed down by authorities in collaboration, or let's say collusion with the corporations. So, for example, if we have to make cow breeding illegal or any milch animal breeding illegal, that way we are attacking like one of the biggest capitalistic institutions, that is dairy industry. So there is a very selective approach taken when it comes to shutting down breeding. And I think at this moment of animal rights or animal welfare movement, making any kind of animal breeding illegal is very hard, because animal rights cannot be divorced from the other social issues we have, such as capitalism. So that is probably why, and there are other factors too. So that's probably why we cannot just declare all animal breeding to be illegal, right?
Yeah, it is true, because it's a part of an industry. For instance,
Yeah.
let us be very honest about one thing. It's a very, very, very controversial subject. Maybe I do not know, but I'm mentioning it. But I want to make it clear that I do not have any allegiance to any party or political figure or anything or anybody. I am talking purely from the point of animal welfare. We are talking about the question that we should be vegan or we should be vegetarian and we should not have beef. But India is one of the largest beef exporting
Yes.
nations in the world. So how is it? It's not adding up, right?
Yeah.
So that is why. So this thing, where that's what I'm saying. Where the question of money is concerned, where the question of business is concerned, it is very, very difficult to pass such laws.
Next question is there. It's from Saroj again. Can we have a government body to leave tax on people who buy
Rather,
breeds rather than adopt from a shelter, or
or
make
make sterile.
sterilization of breeds necessity between 1 to 2 years?
Saroj, answering this question, one thing is, I don't think it's possible to levy a tax on people who buy breeds, because actually there is no law that says I cannot own a Doberman. There is no law that says this. Okay. So to bring about such a law, I think here the thing is, if you see on a practical level, and Saroj, I know the work you are doing, and I know the amount of extent of work that you do. Having the laws with you for simple cruelty cases, you know how hard you have to fight. Okay, just to enforce laws which are already laws, and you have to fight to get those laws implemented. Now, the question here is that imagine that which laws we already have. For instance, pet shop laws, breeding laws, all the things are there. But how is it getting practiced? How is it on the ground? So if we are going to levy a law or a tax on people who buy breeds, that means we are saying that if you have a breed dog, then you have to pay a tax. So that I don't think, I don't know whether it's possible to do such a thing in reality. Yes, it sounds very good, but I do not know. And even to make sterilization mandatory, that is also something where the question is then the owner will say that I am taking full charge of my animal and I am responsible for my animal. So why should I sterilize my animal? Anything you'd like to add to that, Apurva?
I think in the same thing that you said, that instead of trying to bring in new laws in new ways that we can control this kind of a breeding or the industry, I think we really need to focus on implementing the existing laws we have, because we can come up with like really fancy laws on paper, but our problem from like decades altogether has been the implementation. Our problem has been law enforcement authorities that don't even register your complaints. So I think as activists we should be directing our efforts towards implementation of the existing laws and awareness of these existing laws amongst activists as well as like law enforcement circles. Okay, so Supriya, there is a next question. I have personally it's by Jishnu. I have personally witnessed one second. I have personally witnessed certain people taking in these breed dogs from streets which are abandoned. and not taking care of them and selling them off? What can we do about it?
See, this is a question that has to be proved. If
Hmm.
the what is the law concerning this? For instance, if you have seen people taking breed, that means the breed dogs have been abandoned. The animals have been abandoned. They are taking care of them and then selling them. What can we do about this? Now, Jishnu, how many times has this happened? Because it's not possible to do this very regularly. But here again, my question will be the person who is buying it. Doesn't that person want to know something about the animal? Where has it come from? How has it come to be with this person? Why is he selling it? How can he sell it? Does the animal have any registration? So I think the buyer needs to be a little educated in this matter and put up some proper questions. I think so.
Also, like under Section 11 of Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act, it's illegal. Like it's cruelty to animal if you abandon the animal. So you can register a written complaint with the police again,
In
but
this
like
case,
it coming
in
down to
this
the
case,
same thing.
in this case, I don't think Jishnu will be knowing that the who is
Yeah,
abandoned the
exactly.
animal.
Proving
So
proving the
how
case
does he
is the
prove that
problem.
X person abandoned the animal and Y person has adopted the animal? That he doesn't know. I don't think he would know that.
Yeah. So collecting the evidence as to who previous owner was and that this dog has actually been abandoned, it's very hard to prove.
Yeah, very hard to prove. Only thing I can say in this case, the person who is coming to buy the animal from the person who has picked up the abandoned animal, the person who is coming to buy, that person needs to have a lot of question and answers to try to ascertain where the animal was got from. Because I presume this animal will not be a pup. It will
Yeah.
be an adult. So we'll
Adult
have to
dog.
find
Yeah.
out. Yes, yes, correct.
So I think this is one of the nicest examples we can give again, that we already do have a law that says abandonment is illegal. It's cruel to dogs. But again, how do you implement this? Because there is a law that says abandonment is illegal, and people still go on to abandon the dogs. Not only they do that, people who want to help these animals back, they don't really have any kind of legal recourse to actually prove this case. So it all then again comes down to educating the buyers and educating the people who already do have animals, that if time comes and this person cannot absolutely take care of the animal, the best thing to do is at least like reach out to a shelter nearby and ask them if they could take in the animal instead of abandoning this animal on the street. There is a next question. It's by an it's anonymous attendee. My question is not related
My
to pet shop.
question
Huh. Is not related to
acts
pet
for
shops, but
animal
with acts of animals protection.
protection. In
In
this
this
bird flu,
bird
so many
flu,
birds are being
huh,
killed. So is it like we don't have any act for them? See, now the thing that is happening, uh, I just can say this much, that as usual, it comes to the situation that yes, the birds are being killed. And if you ask why the birds are being killed, the answer is to protect humans. So unfortunately, the situation is such that all the things which are being done, as sad as they are and as unfortunate as they are, the majority of the population will agree with mass culling of animals which are supposedly carriers of any virus or harmful element which could harm human beings. Because again, I say it unfortunately because I personally don't go with this line of thinking that human life is the most precious. So in a bid to save human life, whatever needs to be killed can be done. And that is what we saw, if you remember, when the COVID started in the wet markets, animals were slaughtered in large numbers. So the same
when
thing
there
now
was
is
no
happening.
awareness that it's not a zoo, not like it can't be passed down through animals. Like we saw a
Now
lot
we
of
don't know
culling.
that because there are many theories abounding regarding how. So coming back to the question, yes, birds do have certain rights, but their rights don't come anywhere close to human rights. So if it means that human rights have to be preserved and that health is to be preserved for the human species at large, then culling of all animals. Why in Norway, I think that millions of minks also were killed. Yeah, so that is the same thing that is happening here. The next
I think
question I think is,
parallel parallel
Yeah.
examples to these would be like when people suspect a dog to be a rabid dog, and let's just say this dog does have rabies, so it is also considered like in the favor of human, because the human interest weighs more than the animal interest, so it's okay to kill a rabid dog. Same thing happens to wild animals when they are declared manhunters. So if you remember the case of this tigress Avni who was shot down by the forest department,
Yeah.
it's in the same line
That's
of
also.
argument that human interest overpowers animal interest. Okay, so next question is from Saroj. Like the ivory is made illegal and so the demand went down. Why isn't breeds and
Breeds
exotic
and exotic
animals
animals.
made
See,
illegal plus
exotic
the police
animals,
station?
yeah, Saroj, breeds are not been made illegal, but exotic animals actually are illegal. You are not allowed to deal in exotic animals because don't forget, when we are exporting an exotic animal, which is not a domestic animal from India to out of India, that is illegal. Same way, the exotic animals which are being imported into our country, they are leaving their native country also illegally. And many times you find that the police or the authorities at the airports or the different ports, they find these animals and they are seized in large numbers. And
Yeah,
then unfortunately there are very few organizations capable of looking after these animals. Another thing is, since
rehabilitating
these
them.
animals are exotic animals and they do not belong to Indian climate, flora and fauna, the question is, how do we release them in the wild? Because